Okay, welcome back. Let's move on to what your day could look like. Educators, when you arrive, the program manager should have safety forms printed out and on your clipboards for you. You should be certain of which students are enrolled for that day, and things like first aid bags and tech should be charged and good to go. Here's where preparation appears in the schedule for a Write Club. Surprisingly enough, right at the very start. There are a couple of professional expectations that we have for everyone. Arriving on time and being clocked in as scheduled. If you're not sure when the right time is, ask your supervisor. You should be in your Right at School uniform with your badge so that people know you to be a part of Right at School. This is our time to prep our programs so we can focus on keeping kids safe and having a metric ton of fun. Now it will be time for our daily team huddle, where we will cover who is doing what and when they need to do it. Go through reminders for the week, and it's an opportunity for giving and receiving feedback. After the team huddle, we will set out supplies and we'll create our name to face groups based off of the daily attendance. This is the team at Flora Vista going through a team huddle. Team huddles are important because they set the expectations for everybody. They keep important things at the forefront of everyone's mind, and they encourage collaboration between every member of staff. You can use the team huddle agenda, which is included in your workbook, as a way of ensuring everything is covered for the day. Here are the supplies we need to set out every day for our programs to be successful. This list is in your workbook, so you can keep this with you to ensure you have all you need at the start of every program. Now we're going to customize our name to face count form based off the attendance for the day. Only students who are scheduled for the day should appear on the name to face count form. We'll group students according to staff to child ratio, and because the name to face form is a legal document, it will be kept legible. So let's practice. Using the attendance roster practice page from your program manager's workbook, fill out the information for this name to face. The date is the 16th of May 2022. The school is Lincolnwood. It's after school, so we'll check PM, and it's the Write Club program, so we'll check that. Because there are only 9 students and our ratio here is 1:18, we'll only need one name to face form, so we won't need to use the group name. Write your name under the first staff name and put in the time in, which as an educator for this program would be 3:20, 15 minutes before program starts. Now we'll fill in the names of those 9 students. Wait, is it 9? Who is actually going to be present? According to the attendance roster your PM filled out earlier, several students will be absent, and there was one who is a drop-in student. Only students we are expecting will be written into a name to face count form. Go ahead and write those names down now. Looking down the rows, we know that 7 students should be in attendance today. Ensure you've written first and last names so there is never any doubt which students were in your name to face group for that day. Awesome. Let's watch the team at Kingsley set up their program now. Okay, now it's time to discuss. Why do we invest time in doing a team huddle every day? Why is it so significant, and what can we use team huddles for? Let's think back to that belonging stuff that we talked about earlier. Then think about team prep. What do we need to do to set up our programs, and why do we need to do these tasks? Why does being on time matter? And what tasks are you going to prioritize so that you know that they are completed before any others? As a group, share your ideas. Before we take a break, let's quickly cover something very important. Positivity. Why we keep it positive. Did you know a child will smile 380 times more a day than the average adult? Well, not at school. You see, there's enough negativity in the world without us adding to it, and we have a responsibility to lead by example with our students. Kids absorb the world around them. So imagine what influence you could have just by being a source of positivity to a child who might not even get that at home. When we only use positive child guidance and we teach students what to do rather than what not to do, we create a fun and safe environment for everyone. And we set clear, consistent, realistic, age-appropriate limits that build personal esteem, independence, and responsibility for every child. Here is a list of the differences between positive guidance and negative punishment. With positive guidance, the shift is always on us and our perspective. For instance, if a child is continually off task, negative punishment would assume the child is the cause. But what is actually the case is it's usually that we need to look at us as the cause of this behavior. It's not easy to think of us as the cause of something, but it is the better approach because then we can do something about it. Here's Brenna doing a quick ABC recap.
Hi team, we hope you're enjoying your training with Right at School. Before we actually enter the classroom, let's talk about some quick and practical ways you can address behaviors in your program. Before we get started, we want to remind staff that although behaviors can be difficult to work through, they are never an indicator of who a student is, but are always a direct response to what is happening in their world. It's our job as staff to accommodate individual students by adapting to meet their needs. We will change our practices to change behaviors, not expect them to change. Now, let's get into it. Did you know that negative behaviors are always caused from one of two factors? The first is an unmet basic human need, such as hunger, sleep, or other factors that may be biological or environmental. The other reason we might see behaviors is when attention seeking is occurring. This is when a student is desiring adult attention, even if it means acting inappropriately to get it. Sometimes attention-seeking behavior can also be an attempt to take back feelings of control. So we may have identified why a student is acting up, either an unmet basic human need or attention-seeking intentions. But now what do we do about it? At this point in training, you may have heard of positive guidance. But what is positive guidance really? Positive guidance is an intervention tactic that focuses on what the student should be doing instead of what they shouldn't be doing, gives clear instruction, is equitable and researched, and considers trauma. But you might be wondering how these factors can be applicable in daily practice. As we continue through this module, we will be discussing the ABCs of behavior and the Right at School inclusion steps to answer this question. To begin, let's learn more about the ABCs of behavior, which provides a quick guide to managing behavior in a classroom setting. Starting with A, we always want to ensure antecedents are taking place. Antecedents are what we as adults put into place to prevent behaviors. Examples of this include having posted classroom expectations that you review daily with students, having a posted classroom schedule so students know what to expect, and providing 5, 3, and 1 minute transition warnings to eliminate the element of surprise as we move from one activity to another. Can you think of any other antecedents that may be used frequently in a classroom? Antecedents are truly our biggest ally when preventing negative behaviors. Next up is behavioral guidance, which is the B in the ABCs. When addressing behavior, we always want to have a response tactic to teach children appropriate and desired behavior. When a child is exhibiting positive behaviors, we want to provide descriptive praise to encourage them to repeat it. This might sound like, "Joe, you are doing such a phenomenal job sharing your Legos. I bet that is making Sally feel really important." This provides the opportunity for a child to have built self-esteem, feel recognized, and truly want to repeat the behavior. It's kind of a form of behavior teaching. Uncontrolled behaviors are behaviors that take place naturally. For example, a child with an identified special needs may have behaviors that align with their diagnosis. In these cases, we will always attempt to partner with the parents and school first to find the best intervention plan for this individual. Finally, negative behaviors are identified as an unmet basic human need or as attention-seeking behavior. These behaviors require clear boundaries and expectations, which is another reason we heavily encourage putting antecedents into place. These will help hold a child accountable for their actions, which brings us to the C of ABCs, which stands for consequences. Here at Right at School, our consequences are always natural and restorative. A natural consequence is exactly as it sounds. It happens naturally. If a child is tipping back in their chair, we will remind them of safety expectations and ask them to put all 4 legs on the ground. Remembering that we can't put our hands on students, if that child does not comply and the chair falls backwards, we have just witnessed a natural consequence. At this point, we will use conversation to connect with the student and make sure they're okay. We will also remind the student that we care about their safety in a compassionate way while reminding them that their choices do have consequences. Restorative consequences take place when conflict resolution is needed. Here are 3 practical restorative consequences that you might use in your program. Time owed of a person, place, or thing. At Right at School, we're never going to put a child in timeout. We definitely don't believe in that. However, we might time out an item, let's say a basketball, if 2 children are fighting over it. What you would do is ask the kids to freeze right where they are, which gives the opportunity for a calm body. We would then remove the basketball and hold it up in the air for 1 minute, telling the kids that we need to review our expectations and be safe with our bodies. After the 1 minute is up, we would give the basketball back to the children, again reminding them of the expectations and letting them know that the basketball will go back in timeout should they not practice safety. The second restorative consequence is a refocus form paired with an I escape conversation. Refocus forms can be found on the wiki for various age groups. Whenever we use these, we want to remember that we are teaching a child how their actions affect other students. So we mainly want to use refocus forms for physical or verbal aggression. Finally, classroom community service is a great restorative consequence. As we set our expectations in the classroom, we want to remind students that we are building a community, and our classroom is their community every day. When destruction of the community happens, such as a child throws chairs across the classroom, or there's bullying behavior going on, they have the opportunity to improve their community by providing a service. This might look like picking up the chairs they knocked down, or if someone's already done that, maybe they'll straighten up your bookshelf. For older students, we have the opportunity to put them in a leadership position by having them help out with younger kids or assisting the teacher in some type of way. Asking your students what they want to do for community service is a really powerful way to give them agency back and help them make positive decisions that will increase the classroom camaraderie. Does this visual look familiar to you? If you've worked in childcare, it's likely you've had your buttons pushed by a student, which is why power struggles are an important call out when considering consequences, or the C of ABCs. A power struggle is a behavior from a student that manifests in a demanding, overwhelming, or argumentative way to compensate for perceived powerlessness. This might look like you asking a student to turn off a computer, for example, and they refuse. And then you ask again, and they refuse again. It goes round and round in a circle, and no one wins. This is important to avoid because we want to give back power and autonomy to our students to encourage appropriate decision making. This leads to appropriate development and fosters independence. It also gives us peace of mind by preventing staff burnout and feelings of frustration. Finally, how do we do it? We avoid power struggles by removing our personal feelings from the equation and relaying expectations in a way that gives kids the power to make responsible decisions after weighing the consequences. This might look like telling a kiddo that if they don't turn off the computer in a timely manner, they will owe you a community service. Remember, no one wins in a power struggle. So we've covered working with children that may have difficult behaviors. But what do you do with those feelings of frustration when you're giving all your time and attention to those students and you still have a classroom of other students to care for? Here at Right at School, we're going to focus on equity over equality. And what this means is that, yes, it's important to equally distribute your time, attention, and resources to students. But naturally in program, there are going to be students that need more of your attention and time based on their needs. We will give those students exactly what they need to be successful because that is the definition of equity. Some are going to require a little bit more. Equality ends up leaving students out. So what do you do when you've had a child with difficult behaviors in program for an extended amount of time and are feeling frustrated and out of tools? This is where the inclusion process comes into play. First and foremost, program managers need to partner with the area managers by turning in detailed incident reports explaining behaviors, staff interventions that have been tried so far, and other pertinent information. Area managers will then deem if it's necessary to reach out to the inclusion team. When the inclusion team is involved, they will work with the area manager and program manager to seek partnerships with the school, family, any outside agencies that are involved, and anyone else that may be of importance to create a comprehensive intervention plan for the student that is struggling. It's important that educators and program managers alike review the intervention plan and document how it is going before next steps are considered. Track process through documentation. Again, write detailed incident reports. Inclusion will be following up with you and your area manager to determine what is needed next. Thank you so much for attending this training. Please remember there are several people and resources that are accessible to you should you need additional inclusion support.
It's a truth universally acknowledged that unless you create fun things to do for your kids, they'll create their own. So always have activities planned for your kids at arrival. That way, they'll want to be part of the group. They'll want to be sitting at the table. They'll want to be where you are because you are Captain Fun. You now have 5 minutes to work together as a group to think about attendance procedures. Whilst you might not know what your program can do, these are important things to consider now, so when you do your on-site training, you'll already be prepared. let's consider why we limit attendance to 15 minutes. I am a parent. This is my daughter Ellie. She is a three-nager. She's a wonderful artist and loves to paint. So I'll often set her down with some watercolors and paper and leave her to get on with it. A few months ago, she was at the dining table painting, and I turned around to get her some juice. 2 seconds later, I turn around and see my daughter, who went from innocent budding artist to Braveheart in 2 seconds, a giant paint stripe right up her face. Imagine what she could do in 15 minutes. As a parent, I want to know that somebody not only knows where she is, but is actively supervising her. In fact, I would venture to say 15 minutes is 15 minutes too long. This brings us onto our missing child procedure. And for the next week or so, we'll be doing this quite a bit. Remember, if a child is on our attendance roster, they are our responsibility until we can vouch for their whereabouts. And remember, the only sources that we trust are the families and front office staff, no one else. While a missing child is a scary concept, we will always remain calm and keep our other students engaged. Go ahead and ask each other these questions. Remember, this will be common in those first couple of weeks. Kindergarten students will get on school buses by accident. Parents will pick up early and not let us know. Parents will forget that they even enrolled their child in our program. The important thing is for us to stay calm and partner with our families as they try and make head and tail of those first few weeks of term. Remember, you are responsible for the safety of all students in your program, and we only get confirmation from families and front office staff regarding student absences. Let's take a well-deserved break. Be back here in 10 minutes.